So following the latest Nintendo Direct and the brand new Zelda Tears of the Kingdom trailer that was showcased there is a ton of dialogue online around the price point for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom now that we have official confirmation that this will be the first ever first-party published Nintendo title that will be sold at a $70 MSRP here in the United States region, of course. But regardless of where you are at in the world, it is being sold at a higher price point than what you typically see first-party Switch games launch at. And in today's video, we have to break down Nintendo's response to this situation in terms of how they intend to treat game prices on the Nintendo Switch going forward. And I want to share my personal opinion on how I think Nintendo will navigate this as we finish out the rest of the Switch's life cycle and start to talk about next-gen hardware around the corner and go over where us Switch fans should be setting our expectations when it comes to new Nintendo Switch game releases and the price point in the future. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are discussing Nintendo and their price point on new major first-party Nintendo Switch games going forward, because you might have already found out with all of the talk and discourse online that Tears of the Kingdom will indeed be the first ever $70 first-party published Nintendo title. And while we've seen one-offs here and there, I believe the Skyrim Anniversary Edition was sold at $70 on the eShop when it launched. We have never seen Nintendo pull this tactic before, and clearly there's a lot of conflicting opinions on whether or not it's justified. While I'm never a fan of price increases, especially during the middle of a console life cycle as opposed to starting off a fresh new generation, I do think if there's one game that you could probably argue that would justify a $70 price point, it would be Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, with its 6+ year development time cycle, as well as being the largest ever first-party published Nintendo Switch games in terms of file size. We now know this thing is over 18 gigabytes, and yes, that will require a bigger cartridge for retail release, although that opens up a whole nother can of worms on whether or not digital should be priced lower than physical games, and I definitely think it should, but it's one of those things that probably will not happen, and I think we will always see across the board pricing as long as physical and digital are both sold and marketed alongside each other as options. But regardless of how you feel about the $70 price point for Tears of the Kingdom specifically, there has been a ton of talk online around the question asking how will Nintendo handle the rest of this console generation and going into the next gen lineup of games, because we know we are not that far off due to the Switch completing its 6th full year on the market in March and starting its 7th year of sales that same month. And does this $70 price point for Tears of the Kingdom signal their bigger plans to actually start to release any kind of mainline major Nintendo game at this price point? And we not only have an official response from Nintendo outlining how they view game prices, but I think we can also do a little bit of educated guessing on how they will react to the market whenever Sony and Microsoft are both pumping out $70 first-party releases, especially whenever we talk about next-generation Nintendo hardware. But to first get on the same page with what they've said around the price point of Tears of the Kingdom specifically and how they view game MSRPs, let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed typed up article together. Nintendo says Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's $70 price isn't the trend going forward. The company says it will price games on a case-by-case basis. It was confirmed yesterday that Tears of the Kingdom will cost $10 more than Nintendo typically charges for its Switch titles. However, in a statement to Game Informer, Nintendo claimed this isn't the beginning of a new permanent price increase for its games. When asked for its reasoning behind the price and if $70 was the trend for Nintendo titles going forward, a spokesperson replied, "We determined the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis." Nintendo confirmed the $69.99 price for Tears of the Kingdom shortly after its Nintendo Direct presentation on Wednesday. The decision marks the first time Nintendo has charged more than $59.99 for a standard edition of a digital Switch game. Sony began charging $70 for first-party games when PS5 launched in 2020, while Microsoft started charging $70 for first-party Xbox Series X and S games this year. Numerous retailers have changed their pre-order prices to match Nintendo's new pricing. It's not yet clear whether they will honor existing $59.99 pre-orders, though Amazon tends to honor the lowest price a product reaches during its pre-order period. So I personally believe that this is a pretty straightforward decision of Nintendo just experimenting with how their fan base reacts to a $70 price point for a major first-party Nintendo Switch release like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, because I believe they also think in their mind, if there was one game that we could read the room and test the market for this new higher price point, it is a game that everybody will buy anyway. Will there be a very small percentage of players that choose to cancel a pre-order or not pick up the game at all due to the $10 price increase? There's those people out there. They're very few and far between. I've seen a lot of the reactions online be like, well, it's $70. I don't want to pay more, but if there was a game that it's not going to phase me on, it is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And what I personally believe we will start to see as we talk about the end of the Switch's life cycle is any major first-party releases that have been in development for years and years that they know will sell well regardless, with the dedicated fan bases, meaning the Zeldas of the world, the mainline 3D Mario games of the world, potentially even franchises like Animal Crossing and Donkey Kong might be sold and marketed at that higher price point, but then we will still see new game additions that Nintendo feels like is targeted at more of a niche audience, like Pikmin 4 being a good example of that will be out later in July this year after Tears of the Kingdom. Its MSRP is $59.99. I think we start to see a hybrid pricing structure around how Nintendo prices their games, some of which being at a higher point, other ones being at their standard $59.99, as they start to kind of tiptoe into every first party major release being $69.99 going forward on the next generation. That's when I personally think that we will see across the board all first party published Nintendo titles will be raised to that higher $70 price point, because I don't think that Nintendo sits around and looks at Sony and Microsoft's game lineups and the development dollars and cost that goes into that without realizing that they could do the same for their core audience. And these are for-profit companies at the end of the day. If there is more revenue and dollars to be made on the table, they will do what it takes to do that. Backing up Nintendo's side of them kind of treating games individually on a case-by-case basis, I do think you can make a strong argument that Metroid Prime Remaster probably would have been very well received at a $60 price point due to the quality of that title, but they dropped it onto the eShop and are releasing a physical copy at a $39.99 price point, which is very consumer friendly and very, I think you can say, even uncharacteristic for Nintendo, because we've had other ports like Skyward Sword HD, Mario 3D All-Stars. Even though you're getting multiple games in that one, you have basically simpler ports, simpler remasters that didn't go through all of the lengths that Retro did with Metroid Prime Remastered, and they are sold at that $60 price. That was highly controversial online. So I do tend to believe Nintendo's statement on they are kind of targeting what is the mainstream appeal of this franchise. Do we feel like we can still sell this thing at a higher price point and generate the type of unit sales we want? And based off of that informed data, that is how they will set their prices going forward. Although, again, I do believe that when we are talking about next gen, new Nintendo Switch hardware, we should all get used to the idea of every major first party Switch game being priced at $69.99. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and opinions around this matter. Are you turned off by the $69.99 price point for Tears of the Kingdom? Is it something that doesn't phase you at all? What do you personally think Nintendo will do with the pricing of major games? Let's say we do get another 3D Mario released on the current generation hardware. Do you think that's priced at $69.99, or do you think Nintendo sticks to $59 and this is a one-off for Tears of the Kingdom? Do you think that by time we get into next gen that we do see them price everything at that $70 price across the board? Or do you think there is a world where just certain games like Zeldas and Marios are priced there and everything else is still sold at $60? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.